actual burrito sales are, probably 10% or less. Most people are buying bowls, and we offer green-based bowls or grain-based bowls, essentially. And so we removed the word burrito from the restaurant completely. It's not on the menu boards. We changed all the signs to greens, grains, smoothies. We'd always had the smoothies, and we'd always had greens and grains. But, we just saw this trend towards, cleaner, healthier, fresher eating.
Joe, welcome to the show. It's so great to finally get a chance to do this episode. We're only joined by you today and not your other, maybe better half. I'm just joking, but so excited to talk about your story, talk about the amazing brand that you've built over the years, Curritos, and also learn about, how you got into the business. So for my audience that doesn't know about you and about your holding, your holding company and the hospitality group and also Curritos, you mind telling us a bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. My name's Joe Lanni. I'm the president and co-founder of the Thunderdome Restaurant Group. We're based in Cincinnati, Ohio. We have 9 different concepts, everywhere from fast casual up to kind of polished casual dining, full service, and 54 locations currently across those brands, about 1,400 team members. And I think we're primarily here to talk about our baby, our first concept ever, which is Currito. Currito turns 20 years old this year.
Congratulations.
Which is crazy. Yeah, thank you. That's it's been a great run. And, as things progressed along the way, it just became clear that this model has just continued to get more and more consistent. The reaction of the customers has been greater and greater. The sales have been rising. I think we've had either 4 or 5 years of same store sales growth, same store EBITDA growth. And, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we just said, all right, we have got to figure out a way to kind of press the gas on this concept and deploy it more quickly. And that's when the idea of pressing the accelerator on franchising really started. So, we've gone out and we've hired a vice president of development, Scotty, who you met. And, he's been here about a year, and we've got 24 open Currito locations currently, but we have 25 franchises sold, and those will be opening over the next probably 2 years or so. And, we got a pretty strong pipeline of growth coming up that isn't counted in that 25 unit count. That's just kind of closed deals to date. So
that's amazing.
Probably open about 10 next year. So we've got a bunch of leases that are out and letters of intent for new locations for our franchisees that we're working through and stuff like that. So it's looking like, it's really going to start ramping this fall and winter. And then, the openings are going to start falling right in line Q1 of next year.
I love it. If the brand is 20 years old now, I'm about 25. So that means you guys started around 2005 or so.
Yeah.
Which when I take a look at the time, I was just a kid, but studying some of the great brands that came out of that generation, fast casual wasn't really a thing, right? And so you guys came in probably at the early stage and, over the last, 2 decades or so have been kind of perfecting the brand and perfecting the concept. Tell our audience some of the learnings or some of the evolutions that the brand has gone through over the years, and specifically around maybe like the avatar of your customer. How did that change and evolve?
Well, like any newly minted entrepreneur with their first business that they're trying to figure out, there were a lot of mistakes made along the way. This is kind of how we learned our craft, really. We did grow up. My brother and I grew up in a restaurant family. My father had a chain of restaurants called the Great Steak and Potato Company. And so we always like to reminisce about, most people are driving somewhere on a family vacation and they're going from point A to point B, and maybe they stop for gas or something like that, or lunch. But when we go on family vacations, it was stopping at 3, 4, 5 malls along the way. All of the great steaks are in mall food courts, and so at a very young age, Dad's hiding behind a trash can or a fake tree in the food court. John and I are being sent up to order sandwiches and French fries and make sure coolers are stocked and people are wearing their hat straight and all the things. And then we'd eat and we'd talk about how the food was made, were the fries hot and fresh, all that kind of stuff. And so when people ask us how we got in the business, it's kind of like we never really thought we'd be doing anything else. When we got out of college, I think my brother and I would have told you we were going to be selling cheesesteak franchises for the rest of our life. It just, the right buyer came along, and all of those were in mall food courts. And early 2000s, Dad was kind of saying, I don't know what's going on with malls. He really rode that wave from 1982, through 2004 when he ended up selling it. And there was a lot of conversation around the sale. It was emotional for him. I think because that was something that he had created and spent his whole life or career anyway, getting going, and because he knew John and I were interested in potentially joining the business. And we were out actually working for other restaurant groups at the time, trying to get some outside experience so that we could bring it back to the family business. I mean, fast forward, gosh, like only somebody that's that in the business could possibly know. He saw what was happening with the shopping malls, and he got out at the right time. It was a little scary for John and I, but we said, hey, we've always thought we were going to live in Cincinnati. We always thought we were going to be in business together. We always thought it was going to be in the restaurant business. Like, we should start thinking about what we want to do. And at the time, you had Chipotle out there. They were really starting to grow. Cincinnati was one of the markets first outside of Denver that they had pretty big footprint. Everybody was paying attention to it. But what we did see was that there were people doing what they were doing or trying to do what Chipotle did, but they weren't doing quite as good of a job. Now they're big and you can have your opinions and all the things, but I mean, tremendous operators and really executed a phenomenal product. And, we thought, well, they've kind of introduced people to this format, but we don't want to do exactly what they're doing or try to do exactly what they're doing. What could be some different spins on it? And then, originally it was Burritos Without Borders, the international flavors. As time went on, we saw the sales shifting away from rolled burritos and really shifting more into the bowls. And in the early 20 teens, we made a decision, actual burrito sales are, probably 10% or less. Most people are buying bowls, and we offer green-based bowls or grain-based bowls, essentially. And so we removed the word burrito from the restaurant completely. It's not on the menu boards. We changed all the signs to greens, grains, smoothies. We'd always had the smoothies, and we'd always had greens and grains. But, we just saw this trend towards, cleaner, healthier, fresher eating. And as we started adding kale, quinoa, some of these types of items to the line, they were just flying off the line. And we said, well, we might have something here. And so where we are right now it's a real sweet spot. We are not a bleeding edge health concept. We have fresh, deliciously prepared food with a lot of healthy options. If you want to come in and, get peanut sauce or a guacamole or cheese or, steak, sour cream, we have all those things. So am I going to tell you, a bowl with steak and cheese and sour cream and guac and all this stuff is the healthiest thing out there? No, but it's freshly prepared. And if you wanted to come in and get tricolor quinoa and some baked tofu and, kale and edamame or chickpeas or one of our house-made vinaigrettes, you can have a very healthy meal. But we are flavor first. We still think people vote with their stomach. And, we're always going to be about fresh, healthy, delicious food, not just food that's only healthy.
I love it. I think in that segment, there's so many lessons that I can just like pick at and we can dig deeper. It's like the first is like, I am very fascinated between nature versus nurture. And in some ways, I do believe that oftentimes the nurture is often more important. And having you and your brother grow up in the business, see your father making some of these decisions and being the secret shoppers, I'm sure you learned a ton. And then what really fascinates me was that pivot that you had to make. It almost seems like you had to completely change the concept. Your original hypothesis around what people want was incorrect. It was invalidated. And then you've kind of positioned it and listened to what the customers were saying and what the sales were saying and kind of moved it and refined it over the years. In any way, shape, or form, was there any sort of internal like reaction that you and your brother faced around completely changing the concept and moving into a different direction?
It was an evolution, not a revolution.
Evolution.
So, yes, changing the sign and the tagline on the sign and removing the word burrito, they seem like radical changes, but it was really slowly adding items, testing different menu boards, testing the tagline, seeing what the customer reaction was. And then when we found things that the customer were reacting positively to, kind of leaning into those things. And really, also at the time, it was a lot about getting big enough that we could partner with our produce companies and some vendors to produce items for us or prep items for us. And that really, we are product first, so we're never going to make a change that degrades the product in any way, but we can now utilize our supply chain to do things more consistently and in fact deliver a superior product to what was being served when we were trying to train team members the right way to, slice a cucumber or, send tomatoes through the dicing machine or, those types of things. So really, that was also part of the decision to move forward with franchising was we finally had the concept to a point where, it was delicious, best in class flavor, great look and feel. The concept was tight in terms of language we were using. And most importantly, the labor model came way into line with some utilization of new tech and some new pieces of equipment that really revolutionized the cooking in the restaurant.
Amazing. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed when I was at the Mainsville location. There was two things. First was how diverse the group that was coming in. There was a lot of kids because they were all waiting in line to get that free, what is it? Free burritos for a year. That was the deal. But it was a very diverse group. And I was surprised at how many young people appreciate eating their veggies. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I look at the line. And there is so much more color, so much more variety. And for someone like me that wants to get as many nutrients as possible from a variety of different food sources, I found that to be really refreshing to see. But then what got me, at least what I was thinking about was, I think I asked Scotty, or I think I asked you, do I get to make my bowl? Like, am I in the position to actually decide what goes on the bowl? And I think what I was told was that a lot of the decision making has already been preset. You have your set salads and you almost nudge customers into picking one of those options between salads, grains, or smoothies. But then you still give the customer the opportunity to kind of decide if they want to make any sort of changes. I guess my question here is like, when you were refining the labor model and refining the operations, how did you kind of keep those two things in mind with like making sure the food comes out quickly, but still also allowing customers to have a personalized experience?
Well, again, it was our customers tell us what they are interested in buying. And so the build your own is one of the options. The premeditated recipes, our signature items, are flavors that we know are going to work well together. They're delicious, and they're really designed to help people who maybe are overwhelmed by all these ingredients and just want something that sounds good. And okay, yes, I'll take that, So they allow us to control the flavor profiles and deliver something that we know is going to be delicious. Obviously, when you're letting people build their own and they start to just put a bunch of different items on there, the fear is that they're going to create something unintentionally that maybe the flavors don't meld well together. It just doesn't taste great. So, we have some different operational keys when we're doing a build your own. We offer these things by name. We don't mention these things, but if the customer wants them, obviously we'll add them to their bowl. The signature bowls and salads also drive speed.
Absolutely.
If you order it, we're order at the register first, and that's unlike some of the other places where everything is built your own. But that really gives us a great ability for speed and for the customer to just go grab their drink. We'll call your name at the end or your number. The build your own process does slow things down a little bit, but if that's what that customer wants and that's the reason they're coming to Currito, we're here to take care of the customer, and we want to give them exactly the experience that they want. The signatures also are great for third party, for online ordering, for ordering through the app. It's just a much more seamless, easy experience, not only for the customer, but also, for the operations team. Yeah.
Are you seeing, when you think about the sales breakdown, are you seeing a lot more customers coming in through the online channels, whether it be on your own app, which I did try and it was really good, or are you seeing more in like third party delivery or indoor coming into the store? I also heard you guys are working on like a pickup window as well. So all these different channels, where are you placing your bet on where you're going to see the most sales increases over the years?
Well, we're over 30% through digital channels now. So that obviously is something that has exploded post-pandemic. We didn't really even have DoorDash pre-pandemic. It just wasn't around, so we didn't do third party. Those avenues are really growing. We have tried drive-throughs and we have tried pickup windows, and where available, we want one or the other, but we really are focused on the pickup window. It drives people to our app. So because the app usage becomes so heavy, it becomes our most efficient way of marketing. It's tough to tell if you're making a post on social media, what people's real reactions are. Do those likes translate into customers coming through the door? We don't know. But, if we've got new menu items coming out, or if it's your birthday, or, whatever the occasion, and we want to push a gift or a message to the app, and you've got your settings set correctly, it's popping up on your screen. We can time those for different meal periods, depending on what the item is. It's just a very efficient way to get information in the hands of our most loyal customers and drive them through those channels, which, without getting too technical, especially when you're talking about third party or something like that the fee structure is just completely different and a lot less when you're driving people through your website or your app, as opposed to going to the DoorDash or Uber Eats marketplace, their app.
Absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. And I remember speaking with, I think Joe was mentioning that one of the earliest Currito you guys had was in California at the Topanga Mall where I grew up. Yeah. And I think right now you're primarily in the Ohio area and then moving more so in the Midwest. Where do you see when you're, deciding to go for a new franchisee or a new group or a new geography, what do you look for in expansion, and where do you see the future of Currito kind of moving beyond the Cincinnati area?
So, we're open to franchising in markets that are a little more far-flung. I think if we're looking at that type of growth, it would have to be with the right group that could really quickly build out a market. You're talking 10, 15, 20 unit deals. Most of the growth that we're focused on. So anyway, if that fell in our lap, and hey, if there's somebody out there that has 10 McAllister's Delis in Denver and they're looking to add something to their portfolio and use their infrastructure to grow another brand, we'd love to talk to that type of franchisee. But the majority of our growth that we've been seeing, and the majority of the interest, has been kind of smaller, 2 to 5 unit franchisees. We're really focused on looking for people that are hoping to grow in the greater Midwest. We have a brand equity here with our units in Cincinnati. We've got Lexington coming up, 4 units. We got Dayton coming up, 3 units. We've got 1 unit in Louisville, and we've got 3 more that are going to be built there. We have 4 units in Chicago. We got 5 more that are coming shortly. And so for supply chain, brand equity, familiarity with the brand, we're really focused on a regional strategy first before, looking into more faraway places. But we're open to talking to great groups anywhere in the continental U.S.
And are you finding more growth in the suburbs? Are you finding more growth in the urban locations? What would be when you're considering the typical Currito customer, where do they hang out?
It really depends on the market that you're in. So if you came to Cincinnati, well, you already came to Cincinnati, but if someone came to Cincinnati and looked at our 9 corporate locations, we built this city out in a way that allowed us to have the model that would show potential franchisees something that is like where they're looking. So, for instance, we have a central business district location here. It's on 5th Street in Cincinnati. It's right catty corner from Fountain Square, which is kind of the heart and soul of downtown Cincinnati. We have university locations. We have one on Xavier University's campus. It's actually in a dorm. That's a little non-traditional, but it works really, really well there, as you can imagine. University of Cincinnati, we have about a 1,700 square foot location right on Restaurant Row, Calhoun Street. You see all the familiar brands there. We have upscale suburban locations like Kenwood. We have Blue Ash, which is a suburban office-driven market, and several others kind of in between. But really, the idea was we need to test this thing in different types of markets and see where it works. Luckily, the numbers are very consistent across all of the units. Whether it's suburbs or downtown, and I think that if you've got a central business district in the area where you are, we didn't realize having this great central business district location would allow us to expose ourselves to people that lived all over the city. They come downtown for their job. They got to have lunch. We're quick. We're delicious. And as we started moving into the suburbs, all of a sudden we started hearing, oh, yeah, I get you for lunch, downtown all the time. And it was just like, instant awareness. And I'd love to say that was the business model and the game plan, and that was our strategy all along.
No.
When you're starting something out, again, you're learning things along the way. And that was one of the real key learnings, was in a high traffic area where you've got people coming from all over the region, you can really get a name for yourself. Actually, we had an opportunity to be in some airports early on as well. And again, that was survival. We thought, well, hey, you know what? This is a great location. We can operate it. We're definitely going to be able to sell a franchise to somebody that's got one of the 3 spaces in the Boston Logan Terminal C, But again, what we saw with those non-traditional airport locations, of which we've had 7 or 8 now, was that we got a lot of familiarity with a lot of people from all over the place. And it really drove brand awareness, which was an awesome thing. Again, born out of survival, but great learning. If you can get in a spot like that, you can expose your brand to a large number of customers that might not otherwise have a chance to access.
Absolutely. I've had a few founders of brands and executives of brands mention that exact same learning, right? Like starting off in the urban places, initially their avatar was the white collar worker that's working in accounting, law firm, whatever. And they've kind of discovered that these people are going to the office, and after the pandemic, they were all staying home, and the brand equity kind of it was there, but it wasn't being tapped into because now the way people live and the way people go about their day to day has changed. And I love that you're kind of realizing that same lesson, and you're honest in that it wasn't the strategy all along, but it was because you listened to your customer, and it was because you tested and you learned that you were able to unlock that insight. And it almost seems like, from listening to your story, that, over the last 20 years, you've been kind of perfecting the brand, perfecting the core concept, and packaging it up in a really nice way. And now you're in this exciting stage where you are bracing for growth, and you're going to learn a ton about where the Currito brand is meant to head towards. And so when you kind of look back at the last, you can call it 20 years, even before that, from the learnings from your dad, what are you most excited about for the next 5-10 years of the brand? And, if I had to have a call with you or another episode in 2 years from now, what would you want to have accomplished to make it be a good story?
Yeah. In 2 years, we want to double the size of the company. So we want to go from, 24, 25 to 50 units. And I think that we can get there with the pipeline that we have currently. And then we want to continue a steady growth. That is, 12 units a year, something like that. I think there's a lot of stories out there of concepts that have gone out and sold out the whole country and then try to open some enormous amount of restaurants quickly. And, like you said, we've been doing this for 20 years. We want to be doing it for another 20. And we think the right way to do that is to grow as aggressively as our operational support can effectively manage. This is a people business, and these units that are coming online are tremendously important to the future of the brand. If we want to be 100, 200, 500 units, these next 25 better open correctly. Our franchisees better feel supported. Our team better be excited. Unit economics have to remain very strong. And all these things are kind of intertwined. So, if you're asking me 2-3 years from now, I'd say a bunch of happy franchisees and, about 20, 25 more units that are performing at the same level as the units we have now are performing. That would be the dream for sure. But now we got to go out and do it, which is the hard part, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's amazing to, have this conversation with you and have learned from meeting you in person and from your team and from some of the articles and podcasts I was able to scour up about your story. It's really inspiring, but also it's a story of making sure that you're growing the right way and you're listening to customers and you're building a tremendously good product. I think oftentimes I've seen other brands try to find a niche of a niche of a niche to try to jump on some new trend or some new wave, and that only lasts you so far, right? So I love that. Let's close this off with my last segment. I always like to ask, the leaders and founders that I talk to, who has inspired you over the years, whether a mentor, a colleague, a person that you've, studied and has really been tremendously important to your growth. Who would that be?
I think, if you ask myself or my brother, we'd have to say my dad. We wouldn't be in this business if we hadn't been around what he did, and if we hadn't had his counsel and hadn't learned the lessons that he taught us along the way. We couldn't have possibly started as early on in our careers as we did without his help and guidance. And so that gave us the confidence to step out on a limb and try. That was another thing that he really instilled in us, was that, like, you got to go do it. You just have to try. Like, you can't overthink it. You got to think about it, and you got to give it the time it needs. But at the end of the day, you can think yourself into total confusion, and you got to go out and you're going to make mistakes, but you're going to get back up. And, when you're young enough, you have time to fail. He had a 10-unit chain before he started Great Steak that ended up not really working out, but it got him to where he started Great Steak, and then anyway, the rest is history. And so, yeah, it's got to be my dad. He's the one that really got us going. Inspiration now, I am inspired by the Currito team. They are crushing life. They're bought in. They're excited. They're looking to invest in their own locations, which is, the best thing that you can hear, is that they're working in it every day and they're seeing the customer reaction and they're saying, how do I get a piece of this? I want to be a part of the growth story, not only by helping franchisees open and supporting franchisees, but, I want to make a better life for my family by investing my own hard-earned money in this concept. And so that has been awesome for John and I to see. It's been really cool.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for taking the time to tell our audience about the story, about all those lessons, and for, welcoming me to that event. It was amazing opportunity for me seeing a new location open, seeing what goes into that, and also being able to, talk with your team. And I did felt this energy pulsating through the room. And it was really exciting to see, both from your team and from the franchisees that just opened up the place. It seemed really exciting, and the guests. So I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you very soon, I hope.
All right. I hope so. Thanks for having me. And we'll see you at the next opening, hopefully.
Yes, sir. Take care.
All right. Thanks.